100.5 FM, our viewers on the Parliament channel, and those of you joining us on the World Wide Web on the Parliament's website, www.ttparliament.org, or via our YouTube channel, ParlView. Do not adjust your sets. It is, in fact, a sitting that's about to take place, but it is, in fact, the 14th National Youth Parliament, where students from secondary and tertiary level institutions throughout Trinidad and Tobago take the seats of the members of Parliament and occupy those seats for one day to debate a topic of national importance. The topic today is youth crime, how to tackle the issue, and what are the opportunities for young people. So we are just a few seconds away from the start of today's Youth Parliament, again the 14th National Youth Parliament, and so we wait to hear what these young people have to say on this issue. They have been trained, they have been tutored into the ways of parliamentary practice, speech, debating skills, and now the floor is theirs. So we take you over now to the chamber. We welcome you to the 14th National Youth Parliament that takes place on Monday, October 31st, 2016.
Almighty God, Creator of the universe, we graciously thank you for your numerous blessings bestowed upon us. As we gather here today as future leaders of this great land, we look towards you for guidance and wisdom in our deliberations at this National Youth Parliament. We ask for wisdom, excellence, and strength for all our leaders, guidance in our schools, and healing of those wounds of separation. Open our hearts to accept those things that are true, and to demonstrate love always, so that we and all citizens of this nation can live in peace and harmony. Amen. Amen.
Announcements by the Speaker. Papers.
Call upon the Leader of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have the honor to lay on the table the following paper. The report for the second sitting of the National Youth Parliament 2016.
Questions to ministers. Requests for leave to move the adjournment of the House on definite matters of urgent public importance. Statements by ministers. Personal explanations. Introduction of bills. Motions relating to the business or sittings of the House and moved by a minister or parliamentary secretary.
Leader of the House.
Mr. Speaker, as required by Standing Order 33, I seek the leave of the House to consider private business instead of government business.
Honorable members, the question is that the House consider private business instead of government business. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those against say no. I think the ayes have it.
Public business, private business, motions.
I call upon the Leader of the Opposition, who have granted permission according to Standing Order 4410, and his leave.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move the following motion, standing in my name. Whereas the prevalence of violent crime, including murder, wounding, robbery, shootings, rape, and other sexual offenses in Trinidad and Tobago is a matter of grave concern nationally and internationally. And whereas violent crime is being increasingly perpetrated by the youth in our society, and whereas the United Nations define youth as being between the ages of 15 to 24, which coincides with the second largest age group to commit violent offenses, and whereas there is an urgent need to address the matter of youth and crime, be it resolved that this House call on the government to urgently put measures in place to reverse the increasing involvement of youth in violent crime in our country. Mr. Speaker, our beautiful and talented young people of Trinidad and Tobago are undergoing devastating problems. The young people I'm talking about are the ones that are falling up to a life of crime. These are not bad persons, Mr. Speaker. It's just under circumstances they became this way. Mr. Speaker, the government of Trinidad and Tobago is to be partially blamed for this because some aspects of our youth are being ignored. According to Mrs. Dalisa Gurlal, a journalist at Loop News, stated that in Trinidad and Tobago, it ranks 7th globally with respect to crime. For a population of approximately 1.3 million people in our little island, don't you think that our country is rather unsafe? Mr. Speaker, in the year 2010 had 485 murders. In 2011, there were 354 murders. In 2012, there were 333 murders. In 2013, had 408 murders. In 2014, there were 403 murders. And 2015, there were 410 murders. As from the statistics, Mr. Speaker, we have seen that the number of murder victims have been dominant over the past years. Our youth are using this high crime as an encouragement to follow crime. And what is the government doing about this? Mr. Speaker, youth violence is a global health problem. It includes a range of acts from bullying and physical fighting to more severe and physical assault to homicide. In a youth survey done in 2007 by the University of the West Indies, it showed reasons why our young people turn into crime, in which 13% sought economic sustenance, 22% wanted protection, and 44% wanted a sense of belonging. Moreover, 59% of those youth engage in violence to others. Also, according to the primary data gathered by the Trinidad and Tobago at Youth Risk Project, it is estimated that 50% of our school youth involvement in crime are because of mental disorders, depression, physical abuse, mood disorders, and unresolved grief or loss caused by experiencing the death of friends or family. Mr. Speaker, these problems start with a small minority and leads itself to a huge majority. Mr. Speaker, also in an abstract done on juvenile delinquency by Mrs. Archibald, it showed that the major findings indicate that juvenile delinquency significantly related to the youth's perception of personal deprivation. Mr. Speaker, some of the factors that attribute to violent crime within our youth are hyperactivity, impulsiveness, poor behavioral, poor supervision of children by parents, and harsh physical discipline, experiencing parental separation or divorce at a young age, low levels of cohesion, low socio-economic stability of the family. Mr. Speaker, schools have become the human version of the assembly line in a factory. It is stick in all the components and push out the completed product. This does not leave room for individualism, uniqueness, or the late bloomer who are struggling or those who are coming from an economically challenged background. A recent survey in Trinidad and Tobago showed that over 300,000 people in our country live with less than $1,000 a month. With that said, Mr. Speaker, in an assembly line, when an item is not up to acceptable standards, it is tossed aside into a fast-paced environment. Mr. Speaker, many young people start life with that life stacked against them. Besides school, living in an economically depressed and violent, socially stigmatized community. Mr. Speaker, perception is also just as powerful. For example, the boy from Beetham gives a different connotation from the boy from San Fernando. In certain areas, Mr. Speaker, it is normal for young boys to be recruited for criminal activities from a tender age. But, Mr. Speaker, our young people may not know the consequences before engaging in this, because those who are caught and are convicted are burdened with a criminal record from an early age. And once a person is in the system, it is impossible to get out. And also when a person has a criminal record, Mr. Speaker, their job opportunities are incredibly decreased and therefore would not be eligible to work as a government worker, a professional in the private sector, and also even a simple taxi driver. Mr. Speaker, from hearing all these risk factors, who are to blame? Is it the youth or society? But definitely the youth should not be blamed. So Mr. Speaker, the government needs to have more measures in place in dealing with our youth to make them better peoples of our country. Right? Some ways that the government should embark on, some programs that the government should embark on to make our youth better are life skills and social development programs designed to help young people manage anger, resolve conflict, and develop the necessary social skills to solve problems. Also, school-based anti-bullying programs should be implemented. Preschool programs that provide children with academic and social skills at the prenatal stage. Also, therapeutic approaches for young people at high risk of being involved in violence and interventions to reduce the harmful use of drugs. Also, restrictive firearm licensing and purchasing of policies. Also, to promote, Mr. Speaker, the government should promote police youth clubs in each and every district. Because, for example, in Siparia, Mr. Speaker, there were many issues in which our youth were engaged in school violence. And since the reintroduction of the Siparia Police Youth Club, our youth are therefore not being involved in any violence again. Or there were maybe a minority problems. Mr. Speaker, with this implementation of the police youth clubs, our youth realize that there are many opportunities for them and they therefore reverse themselves from going into a life of crime. Mr. Speaker, I do forward with this motion with respect to violent crime with our youth because we want our young people to be successful and live happily with our brothers and sisters of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, in order for this to happen, we must make the right decisions for our youth. And when our youth becomes successful, we can assure that our country, Trinidad and Tobago, will become a better place. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to move.
In accordance with Standing Order 41.5, the motion requires a seconder. I call upon the member for Barataria Sound.
Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the motion and I reserve the right to speak.
Honorable members, I will now propose the question for debate. Whereas the prevalence of violent crime, including murder, wounding, robbery, shootings, rape, and other sexual offences in Trinidad and Tobago is a matter of grave concern nationally and internationally, and whereas violent crime is being increasingly perpetrated by the youth in our society, and whereas the United Nations defines youth as being between the ages of 15 to 24, which coincides with the second largest age group to commit violent offences, and whereas there is an urgent need to address the matter of youth and crime, be it resolved that this House call on the government to urgently put measures in place to reverse the increasing involvement of youth in violent crime in our society. I call upon the member for Princestown and the Minister of National Security.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And before I grace you all with my contribution, I'd first like to thank the opposition for bringing forth this motion. And you stated that once a person is in the system, it is very difficult for them to get out. I am bringing to your attention that this is a priority of this government. Our job is to prevent them from entering the system. As Minister of National Security, it is my job, Mr. Speaker, to ensure the safety of all individuals within this nation's boundaries. Crime continues to be the most prominent and critical issue faced by the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. However, a great percentage of our youth has recently adopted a profound inclination towards a life of crime, as we have recently seen a drastic increase in the level of school violence, in addition to the number being found flirting with illicit drugs and illegal weapons. I have been working closely with other ministries in this government in a collaborative effort to curb this upsurge of youth involvement in crime. Mr. Speaker, this is no overnight fix. These measures that the government is about to put forth will indeed need time to take effect. Mr. Speaker, I believe in order to rectify a problem, you first need to determine the cause. Various reasons for this have been proposed, but in relation to Trinidad and Tobago, I will direct my focus to three main contributors. The main determinant to be highlighted is the family background. The family is the first social institution that a child is introduced to. It is the fundamental building block of society and serves as one of the strongest socializing forces in a person's life. As such, the family background that a child comes from shapes that individual, their consciousness, and their thoughts. Parents exert a significant influence on their children. As such, the spiritual morals and values assumed by the parent, or in this case a lack of, is adopted by the child. There is no longer a fear of God, there is no longer a value of life. In collaboration with the Minister of Family and Social Development and the Minister of Education, we, the government, intend to allocate funds towards the reintroduction of an outreach program. Mr. Speaker, this program involves an increase in the amount of social workers in the country, together with the level of guidance counselors and officers trained and stationed in these schools. You may be thinking that this is an initiative already undertaken, but I'm bringing to your attention that it is not enforced. To tackle the issue of an absence of morals and values, we propose that the religious studies class be implemented on every school's curriculum. It is our responsibility to ensure that it is being taught in this social institution, meaning the government primary and secondary schools up to a Form 3 level. See, Mr. Speaker, the basis of each religion is to teach people to live amongst each other, to love and support. These morals and values, there's an absence of which has created the situation which we face today as Trinidad and Tobago. As such, we are calling upon the religious leaders to intervene, as it is their responsibility to nurture and guide the youth of our nation. We have also seen these adolescents flirting with weapons in schools. Mr. Speaker, in order to rectify this issue, there would be an increase in the level of security guards in these government secondary schools where students have made serious offenses. We are having discussions with the various security companies to ensure that their security guards are trained and that the relevant protocol is designed and followed. Furthermore, we intend to bring about the installation of CCTV cameras.
Remember, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Princess Tong be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We intend to bring about the installation of CCTV cameras in these schools where we will derive the benefits of monitoring and protection of pupils, in addition to promoting a safe and positive environment in this social institution. Experts from all fields have often stated that poverty and crime have a very intimate relationship. Usually with poverty, individuals are unsheltered from high-risk neighborhoods, delinquent peer groups, and the presence of criminal gangs in the area. In these high-crime areas, I intend to up the level of police patrols. This is done in an effort to reduce the violent partaking since there is the presence of law enforcement. The Police Youth Club is a registered non-profit organization whose main focus is to expose young persons to productive activities as an alternative to a life of drugs, crime, and juvenile delinquency. Currently, there are 113 clubs established nationwide. Mr. Speaker, this ministry's target is to ensure that in every constituency there is at least one in operation, and from there the numbers will increase. Mr. Speaker, what will all these implementations mean if there is no operationalization? And this is what this government's major objective will be on this pressing matter of youth in violent crime. A matter as demanding as this one requires commitment if we are to see real change. Our children are our future, and our greatest natural resource lies in the minds of our children. Thank you.
Member for Couva South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to point out that in 2014, Trinidad and Tobago's Crime and Safety Report identified over 100 criminal gangs across our nation. The opposition leader rightly said that when a youth enters the criminal justice system, it is very difficult to get out. And I'd like to urge the government to consider the philosophy of redemption. In 2012, a study conducted by the University of the West Indies entitled Engaging Youths at Risk, No Time to Quit. It was indicated that some of the most susceptible to these gangs are the young men just out of prison with low employment prospects. And I believe that this shows a flaw in our custodial punishment system. It has become notorious It has become notorious for stigmatizing the young offender so that when they re-enter society, they cannot find legitimate work and must return to a life of crime. It also disrupts education and precious family ties. Mr. Speaker, this is because our correctional facilities are seen as places for punishment, places for incarceration, and not rehabilitation, Mr. Speaker. It is with sadness and indignation, Mr. Speaker, that I recall in the Newsday for August 2008 that a young man from my constituency, Couva South, 17 years of age, was shot dead 2 weeks after his release from the Youth Training Center, YTC. What are these facilities correcting then, Mr. Speaker? The services are inadequate. And this is not just my opinion. Earlier this year, the head of the Citizen Security Program, Mr. Sloan Seal, was arguing that there is a culture in these facilities that encourages the young offender to stay tough. We admit them to these facilities for reformation, and there's either no change or they come back out worse, Mr. Speaker. There needs to be a safer and more supportive mental and social space where the adult who is working with the youth understands them and reinforces positive values while equipping them with the skills necessary to return to society as constructive and contributing members. But I ask, how likely is this when, as of 2013, a study conducted by the University of the West Indies revealed that only one psychologist was attached to 8 of these correctional facilities, and that the facilities were lacking in the material needed for the teaching of technical and vocational subjects. The opposition is calling for subventions for the training of professionals who work with youth, for the increase in the number of professionals who work with youth, and for the improvement in the relevance of the materials to secure gainful employment of the young offender when they return to society. Now, some of you may be thinking, why should we invest in a youth criminal? But that is not wasting taxpayers' dollars, Mr. Speaker, because right now we are wasting taxpayers' dollars through this negativistic incarceration system that we have. The United Nations Children's Fund calculated the cost of a single offender spending only 6 months in a detention center in Trinidad. It was $42,216. We are practically paying to remain in the clutches of crime called recidivism when we should be investing in the proper rehabilitation of the offender so that they can return to society and contribute to the economy and offset the losses. Now, the Minister of National Security gave an excellent contribution, a lot of nice schemes to put forward. She mentioned the reintroduction of outreach programs that were not being enforced. I urge the government to realize that there are already outreach programs that have exceptional potential. Right now, in East Port of Spain, there is Project Reason, which is aimed at rehabilitating convicts and teaching them social work so that they can interact with the at-risk youth and then pass on the values that the youth does not follow the wrong path and make the mistakes that they made. But when I had the opportunity to interview a member, he said that the project was desperate for expansionary funds, that the project is confined to East Port of Spain as if that is the only place in Trinidad where there is crime.
Time has expired.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I seek the agreement of the House to continue my contribution in a 3-minute extension.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Couva South be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member for Couva South, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, members. As I was saying, the project is not only desperate for expansionary funds, but it is confined to East Port of Spain. While I have members of my constituency and others, according to the National Crime Report, Mr. Speaker, complaining of drug dealers and solicitors tempting the youth. This project was modeled after a US initiative that saw places were implemented, namely Illinois and Rochester, going 2 years without crime. Think of all we can do with 2 years with 2 years of clean streets, Mr. Speaker, because clearly the government has not considered enough. What I'm saying is that we need to invest in proper rehabilitation. We need to invest in the expansion of these outreach programs that already exist and the development of more like them, as the Minister of National Security said. We have the constructs for human and social development in our midst, but we cannot continue to neglect them. Mr. Speaker, Trinidad and Tobago cannot be great if it does not continue to serve its people. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Arima and Minister of Education.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning. As Minister of Education and member for Arima, my aim is to prevent the youth, through various measures to be implemented at schools, from living a life of crime in the first place. Mr. Speaker, the goal is to encourage the youth to stay on the right path and to motivate them towards being productive members of society. Franklin D. Roosevelt once said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." I intend to build a strong foundation for the youth so that a generation of strong-minded, capable, and educated young people may rise up and make the society of Trinidad and Tobago a better place. Firstly, Mr. Speaker, school counselors will be stationed in all primary and secondary schools nationwide. Mr. Speaker, people may say that school counselors are already present in some schools, but in order to allow for an increase in the positive change which these counselors have already made, these counselors will now be trained in 3 critical areas: academic, social, and career. Their services will help students resolve their emotional, social, and behavioral problems while simultaneously helping them to keep on top of their academics. Counselors will be present during and after school hours and will work in cohesion with teachers who will call upon these counselors as soon as a behavioral problem in a student arises. Mr. Speaker, 3,300 students were suspended in the period of 2009 to 2010 across Trinidad and Tobago, and 2,200 students were suspended in 2012. This method of counseling a student as soon as it seems fit to do so will aid in preventing a behavioral problem from getting out of hand in the first place. A study of Missouri high schools in the US shows that schools with these implemented school counselors, who were trained in the 3 areas which I mentioned before, academic, social, and career, had students who were less disruptive and students who did better academically. 83% of these students who worked with these counselors progressed positively in both academics and behavior. Additionally, research has proven that school counselors indeed have a positive effect on school, community, and students, as it prevents students from dropping out of school. Mr. Speaker, this is a vital part in reducing youth crime, as most of the youth from ages 14 to 24 engage in youth crime such as robbery, gang activity, or violence are often dropouts, and this is what they do with their spare time, and this is how they earn an income. Ideally, Mr. Speaker, school counselors would prove to be a vital ingredient in shaping students' behavior as well as their academic performance. Secondly, another effective preventative measure to be put into place will be the implementation of the Big Brother or mentorship program in all secondary and primary schools nationwide. School principals, representatives of school districts, and administrators will work with a selective group of members from various communities to appoint older and more experienced persons to work with the youths, with the goal of building competence and character in the child. Mr. Speaker, a mentorship relationship can help with children's lives, enrich their lives, provide support and advocacy for children who need it. These mentors can also provide encouragement and inspiration for those children who might not have a strong family structure. And though these mentors can never replace the role of a parent, they can provide encouragement and inspiration for children to stay on the right path. Appointed mentors will meet with their child at least twice a week. Mentors will be privy to any behavioral problems of the student they are responsible for, as teachers will inform them of the status of the child, both academically as well as behaviorally. Additionally, for those students who may be hesitant to seek help in the first place, teachers will be instructed to recommend students who they think should be part of the program. So, Mr. Speaker, those students who need the help, I assure you, will receive it. These mentors and volunteers will work in homework centers with children who might go home to an empty house after school. These children will be more susceptible in participating in unproductive activities. With permission from the school boards, some schools can be used after school for these homework centers. With the help of the Minister of National Security, who I already collaborated with, homework centers and schools that are located in crime hotspots will see to police escorting these mentors to the mentorship programs. These volunteers and mentors will also be screened to ensure that they are worthy of such a position.
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable Members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Arima be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Mr. Speaker, this program that I'm speaking about will not just be implemented, it will be enforced, as evaluation of these students participating will be carried out every 4 months to ensure that these students are not just progressing academically, but behaviorally. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of National Security said, religious education will be ensured to be part of the school curriculum. Religious instruction makes a distinctive contribution to the school curriculum by developing personal spiritual development as well as morals and values. Mr. Speaker, it is obvious that the collapse of morals and values in society today has led to the prevalence of crime and youth involvement in it. Religion, therefore, will help rebuild these values in students and give youth a strong foundation to work with. Mr. Speaker, of the 389 scholarships awarded this year, in Trinidad and Tobago, students attending secondary schools run by a religious board received the majority of scholarships. This is no coincidence, Mr. Speaker. A breakdown of results shows that Presbyterian-run schools secured 151 scholarships, Catholic 141, Hindu 46, Anglican 16, and so on and so forth. Mr. Speaker, an analysis of the 2016 Caribbean Advancement Proficiency Examination, CAPE, revealed that students attending denominational secondary schools tend to outperform their colleagues. Studies have shown that people in general, not just youth, are less likely to commit crimes when they follow a particular religion, as this religion governs their behavior. Mr. Speaker, therefore, religious leaders from all religions will be present to teach religious education so that students have the option of finding a religion that they are comfortable with, which will aid in their personal spiritual development. In closing, Mr. Speaker, the measures I put forth today will aid in preventing the youth of Trinidad and Tobago from engaging in crime in the first place. It will, as we like to say, nip the problem in the bud. Mr. Speaker, the education system will seek to develop the youth not just academically, but behaviorally and spiritually, resulting in a generation of productive, resolute, and brilliant young people who will make valuable contributions to the society of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Member for Tabakit.
I must commend the Minister for National Security and the Minister of Education for brilliant speeches. But, Mr. Speaker, crime, there's a significant rise in violent crime in this country, Mr. Speaker. According to the 2016 list of studies with countries with the highest crime rate by Cody Carmichael, Trinidad and Tobago ranked 7th. What is that? No, that cannot be so. Mr. Speaker, we, meaning both the opposition and the government, we need to understand what is causing this rise in this situation and not only create a solution to lessen it, but rather to terminate this. It is first and foremost the responsibility of any government to secure the safety and the security of its citizens. And with this rising number in violent crime, we need to tackle the situation rightfully, like the Minister of Education said in the butt from now, because if this we don't tackle it now, what could happen in the future? It's going to continue to increase, and this could lead to even more serious criminal behavior in the future. Mr. Speaker, we need the government to stop giving us empty promises and plans that they intend to implement. The time for planning has gone. We need to see them delivering what they promised. We need that the citizens of our country can go to bed at night without the fear of losing their life or getting a call saying that their loved one life was lost. Mr. Speaker, the blame cannot be entirely put on the youth of this nation. We need to consider many factors that lead to crime. Overambitious youth tend to want to achieve a lot of goals, and these youth have no problem in achieving their goals in a short period of time, doing regardless what. These youth are immature and they are easily influenced. Mr. Speaker, increasing poverty, unemployment, and competition causes frustration and hopelessness within these youths, which tend to lead them to take the wrong steps. Bad company, negative influences can lead to the loss of morals and values and can in turn lead to a life of criminal behavior. We, the opposition, propose that the government create avenues to not just facilitate this, but rather encourage the youth to abstain from criminal behavior. Create an avenue to motivate the youth to better themselves and better this country. Mr. Speaker, we want the government to create avenues that will help rehabilitate these youth after they have experienced sentencing time. Some of these avenues my colleagues will elaborate on in a little bit. Mr. Speaker, in this way, with combined effort between the government and the opposition, the youth can be prosperous and they can become a driving force that will push this nation to newer heights.
I would like to direct you to Standing Order 4410. Please refrain from reading from your speech, please.
I am warned. Thank you. After all, we can expect a better tomorrow if the youth of this nation is in the right direction. Thank you.
Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we acknowledge that we must give our youth something to do. We must engage them in meaningful activities. We cannot allow our youth to become idle because they'll continue to become prey to gang leaders, sexual offenders, and overall unproductive persons in Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, crime is relatively low in my constituency. However, I agree with the opposition that we must continue to provide our youths with opportunities to keep them both active and motivated. Mr. Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago Youth at Risk Project states that 50%, Mr. Speaker, of our youth who are involved in school violence are afflicted with a series of health problems, reflected daily in the form of unrepressed anger, sexual misconduct, disrespect for authority, and fighting. Mr. Speaker, just last week in the Newsday on Monday, we had a report where a young man torched his high school because of a cellular phone. Mr. Speaker, I agree. We must provide our youth with opportunities to deal with these issues. Mr. Speaker, my first proposal is that we upgrade the status of sport at the ECCE, primary and secondary school level by diversification of the program. We'll do this by making the programs less concentrated on track and field and extending its arms to areas such as volleyball, tennis, and gymnastics. Mr. Speaker, research has shown that youth who are involved in violent crime, research has shown that youth who are involved in violent crime have stopped because sporting programs have helped them to gain a positive identity, self-governance, and leadership skills. Mr. Speaker, this program will take place where professional coaches and psychologists come into these schools and train the PE teachers over a 2-month program where the teachers learn how to take a more holistic approach to lessons. There will be quarterly check-ins, especially on persons who seem to be at risk of engaging in violent crime. Mr. Speaker, these programs will only work if they are constantly and rigorously evaluated. This will deter coaches and qualified personnel who believe that they can be lackadaisical. Mr. Speaker, this will not be tolerated, especially in trying times like these. Mr. Speaker, my second proposal links the misconception in Trinidad and Tobago that if a child pursues sports, they are not academically inclined. Mr. Speaker, as a nation, we need to move away from this mindset. To show our children that pursuing a career in sports is a viable option. Therefore, I have been in discussions with the Minister of Education to begin providing sporting scholarships at the secondary school level for persons who are pursuing the CAPE program. Research has shown that youth who are involved in violent crime long for a sense of belonging, which is often offered by these gang leaders. We must show our youth that we care about them and that we have made efforts to accommodate students who wish to pursue their passion, especially in the area of sports. Mr. Speaker, for my third contribution, I ask that you give me leave to refer to the Constitution of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, under the Education Act, compulsory school age and offences, the expression a compulsory school age means any age between 6 and 12 years. Subject to Section 78, it shall be the duty of the parent of every child of compulsory school age to cause him to receive efficient full-time education suitable to his age, ability, and aptitude by regular attendance at a school. I believe that this legislation should be amended to move the compulsory school age from 6 to 16. This will allow youth to benefit from the initiatives that I have put forward. And overall, I believe that youth involvement in violent crime will be reduced. Mr. Speaker, I reiterate, the solutions require a commitment to short-term actions coupled with sustained long-term programs. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Naparima.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good morning to all. Mr. Speaker, youth crime is indeed prevalent in our country at the moment. Every day in the daily newspapers and news broadcasts, we hear and see of multiple murders, kidnappings, rape, stabbings, and shooting incidents. Even at the school level, Mr. Speaker, it is alarming to know of the multiple squabbles ending in serious bodily injuries and assault and battery. Mr. Speaker, in my humble opinion, this is a senseless waste of life by both the perpetrators and the victims. Because how I think of them, they could have been potential doctors, lawyers, teachers, sportsmen, and most importantly, productive members of society. Mr. Speaker, it is indeed a fact that youth crime is becoming a worldwide phenomenon. Therefore, please allow me to read from an extract published by the Trinidad Express dated Sunday, October 30th, 2016, entitled Crimes Caused to Society, which states, the UNDP Caribbean Human Development Report of 2012 calculated that Jamaica has the highest number of youth convicted of crime in the region, and that this country spends more than $529 million US every year as a direct public and private cost to fight crime. A previous report of the late University of the West Indies economist Professor Dennis Pantin, released in 2005, had estimated the recurrent cost to crime in Trinidad and Tobago economy to be over 4 billion TT annually. It was also noted that Trinidad and Tobago loses more than 200 million TT tourist dollars a year because of crime. What is this, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, youth crime is not only affecting the youth, but it's also affecting the economy. This cannot be right. But therefore, Mr. Speaker, we cannot sit on our laurels and expect change. With change comes commitment, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I ask that we all look at our motto and analyze it. It states, together we aspire, together we achieve. And what that simply means is not only the government, but the opposition, the NGOs, and the entire citizenry to share plans and ideas and to formulate a stable foundation for the youth and for the future of Trinidad and Tobago. Mr. Speaker, with that being said, I would like to profess some proposals to the government to take into consideration. Firstly, I would like to address the efficiency of trade schools that we have present in our country. For example, YTEP, MIC, and Mr. Speaker. I would first like to commend the government for sustaining these trade schools because, as we all know, not all youth, not all students are academically inclined. Therefore, these trade schools serve as a critical development for the youth. Mr. Speaker, we tend to lose focus of these youth. So I suggest that we implement a where they now report every 2 years for these youth. So we can track and see whether these youth are wasting taxpayers' money, whether they are using their skill and trade to contribute to society, or whether they are unemployed. Mr. Speaker, it should also be, apprenticeship programs should also be implemented by the government with big businesses and with big industries and small businesses. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, I am not only concerned about the older youth, but I am also concerned about the root cause of this problem. Mr. Speaker, in this vein, I would like to advise the government to have special counseling for mothers with at-risk babies. For example, teenage mothers, drug-addicted mothers, and impoverished single mothers, because most of the time, these babies lack the support of a father figure, and most of the time, these mothers don't have the support of a family. Mr. Speaker, therefore, these mothers should strongly be advised to take psychiatric evaluation and counseling at the pre- and postnatal stage at the hospital level. Therefore, these hospitals need to be outfitted with the counselors and psychiatrists who will undertake this responsibility. In this way, these counselors and psychiatrists will refer these mothers to further.
Standing Order 4410, members must not read.
Member for Naparima, please refrain from reading from your speech, please.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In closing, the government needs innovative policies with rational discussion, extensive consultation, and consensus. And this is the only way, Mr. Speaker, the youth of our society will have a chance. I thank you.
Minister of Social Development and Family Affairs.
I thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me clear the air that youth crime is not only in this country. It is a regional problem and an international problem. Our neighbors, Jamaica, according to the Jamaican Observer, 248 young people are arrested each year for violent crime. Even small, lovely Barbados, there is a national youth policy to curb their escalating problem. When we look at the World Health Organization, 200,000 people die every year by youth, making it the 4th highest crime in the world. So this is not unique to this country or the world. However, this government is working to curb this epidemic factor by factor. And one factor is that poverty is a major factor why young people engage in crime. And my ministry has done countless activities to help the poor. However, we cannot stop poverty because the poor will always be with us. However, we can alleviate it and help the impoverished come out of it. And we have done, as I said before, many projects for the impoverished, such as giving 4,500 permanent food cards to individuals who need it the most. We have given 733 grants totaling $6.9 million under the SEED program, Mr. Speaker, for those families who need it, who wants to expand or build a mini or micro enterprise. We have also given 7 grants totaling $35,000 to NGOs to help in their communities. In addition, we have expended $5.1 million on house repair grants for those families who live in a dilapidated state and in an unlivable state. So we care about our people, and this is what this ministry is about: putting food on our citizens' tables, a roof over their head, and making them live in dignity, Mr. Speaker. And in addition, we have proposed a strategy that is very effective for our young people. As my colleague said, the family is the bedrock of society, and when this fails, all else fails. And we need to address the disintegrating family structure that is causing our youth to join gangs, replacing the family. And we have to address the relationship with parent and child. Parents, in my view, is the most difficult job in the world. And they were never given a formula or a handbook to raise a child. Some just can't cope. And we realize that poor parenting is another factor that causes young people to leave the home and engage in crime. We have proposed parent training seminars for those parents who struggle in this area. We will be going into the community centers, the schools, and public libraries, where we will help these parents, who are struggling with raising their child. They'll be trained by teachers, child psychologists, and they'll be trained by community leaders and parents who have done it before and done it well. So in my view, this measure will help the parent raise a child in the way it's supposed to be. And the opposition has been clamoring that they want something new. They want something new. Even though that the parent training seminars is effective, sometimes it is not enough to secure our youth. And we should look at more drastic measures to secure our youth. And we should introduce or embark on a foster care system in Trinidad and Tobago. Currently, there are countless homes in our nation all over the place where they house abandoned children. We need to go in the foster care system where children can be taken out of a home where it is dysfunctional and abusive, and placed in a home where they can thrive, grow, and develop, Mr. Speaker. Why? You may ask yourself, this is harsh, but why? Too many of our young people are being damaged by the horrors of poor parenting, and we need to seek a new way, a better way to improve our children and to help them grow in the way they're supposed to be. And this foster care system will help them.
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
Speaker, I request the agreement of the House for an extension of 3 minutes to continue my contribution.
Honorable Members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Lopino Bornier be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
I thank you. And we have to get our children out of that environment so where they can grow, as I said. And our foster parents will be screened vigorously. They will be vetted with a police certificate of good character, and they must be recommended by community leaders, religious leaders, and educational institutions to prevent abuse of children. Social workers will be imbued with authority to visit and inspect these foster homes to ensure that the child is thriving in a wholesome environment. And, Mr. Speaker, let me just say that your clamors, the opposition, is over now, because we have brought something new that can help our youth thrive. And we have dealt with the problem, the family. The family, as I said, is the core, and we have dealt with this. And once we fix the core, we are able to go forward. With these strategies, myself and my other colleagues said it earlier, I believe that I see a generation where we can live in harmony, where we can work together as a unified body, where peace shall remain and truth shall prevail. And lastly, as I sit, before I sit, let me just say that I'm in awe of the solemnity of this chamber. And I must say, I'm very grateful to sit in the 14th National Youth Parliament. And we all can agree on this chamber that this is what our youth need, opportunity. I thank you.
Member for Couva North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Citizens of our country are crying out over the surging crime that has fallen on our country, and where the Trinidad and Tobago Crime and Safety Report of 2016 would have stated that of the violent crimes committed, they were either gang, drug-related, or domestic in nature. Now, Mr. Speaker, we see that our youth are some of the perpetrators of these violent acts, and where this happens, there should be education system in place where it should curb this escalating issue. Mr. Speaker, as we know, our education system can form and help sustain the future of our individual students. Where this is the case, education provides work from legitimate skills learned, where wages would then deter one from going into a life of crime. Mr. Speaker, there are the schools that do provide the holistic development for our students, but there are the individuals who are not willing to follow school policies, and where this happens, they may go into a life of crime. According to Mr. Harila Sitcharan, an officer at the Ministry of Education, he stated that the students who we push out of the classroom are the ones we must have relegate to the margins of society if we want to plug what we call the school-to-prison pipeline. Now, Mr. Speaker, Minister of Education would have stated that she would put social workers and guidance counselors in schools to curb this issue. But there should be social programs in place if we want to reduce this, where Ministry of Health would include social workers learning from the behaviors of these students, where we could curb this escalating issue, as students should learn problem solving, communication skills, and solving for change if we want to form rational individuals for our society. Mr. Speaker, the compulsory age of attendance is until the age of 12. Where in the Education Act of 1997, Section 77 as amended, states that parents are responsible for the education of their children, where failure to ensure this results in a fine of just $75 in accordance with Section 88(1). Now, Mr. Speaker, we can take note of the Netherlands policy on compulsory attendance, where students who are not in school without proper reason can be put in charged as fraud, punishable by law. Mr. Speaker, their fines can be up to €3,900, where converted to TT dollars would be $28,470. Now, I would suggest that there would be stricter fines when it comes to this issue, as parents should be more law-abiding when it comes to their children's education, where failure to ensure this would result in temporary jail time or compulsory community service. There must also be the review, update, and implementation of Part 3 of the Education Act, which deals with truancy, offenses arising from truancy, and the compulsory attendance of students of compulsory age attending school. Mr. Speaker, there must also be the raising of legislation from the age of 12 to 16 for compulsory attendance in school, to ensure that students do not drop out of the school system, as stated by Member for Diego Martin Central. Mr. Speaker, a study done by the Alliance for Excellent Education stated that of 2013, that students, of male students graduating, a 10% increase in these students would cause a 20% decrease in murder and assault rates. Mr. Speaker, they look to point out that with also an increase in 5% of these male students graduating, there would be a $19.7 billion in savings on correctional costs. So, Mr. Speaker, where we see that our future students are most important for our society, where the inadequacies exist within our education system, they should be addressed as a matter of importance. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Health.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, firstly, I'd like to agree with the member for Naparima, and I'd like to say that we note her proposal for implementations in the prenatal and postnatal care system. Mr. Speaker, it is in coincidence that, in fact, one of my proposals that I was planning to put forward later would be that we would, in fact, implement these parental care systems in our prenatal and postnatal care systems in alignment with what the Minister for Family and Social Development would have said earlier. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to bring your reality of the situation of youth crime to a more temporal and local note. For example, in my constituency of St. Joseph, for example, sadly, there has been 189 serious crimes committed from the period of January to August of 2016. Mr. Speaker, to curb this problem in my constituency, I intend to implement a program called Youth to Youth, where the youth of my constituency would gather on a monthly basis to interact and socialize with each other so as to build relationships and friendships. Mr. Speaker, from time to time, a personality from the public will drop in so as to encourage these youths to stay a narrow and straight course. I, Mr. Speaker, personally will be at each and every one of these programs once my schedule allows it. Mr. Speaker, also, there would be an increase in public clinics, mobile public clinics. Mr. Speaker, these clinics would be sent to more so hotspot areas, quote-unquote hotspot areas, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, this is in alignment with what the opposition leader and also my fellow colleagues would have said, that 50% of school youth involved in crime and violent activities, Mr. Speaker, are in fact afflicted by depression, mood disorders, and trauma from past events. Mr. Speaker, as the Minister of Sports and Youth Affairs would have said, this takes root and it is brought to fruition via anger, fights, and different forms of violence, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, these clinics, when sent to these areas, would be able to better assess the mental states and psychological states of these persons, Mr. Speaker, so as to prevent them clinically from engaging in such activities. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to draw reference to something said by a former Minister of Sport. Mr. Speaker, and I call this gentleman, I hope he takes no offense in me calling him a gentleman, but he in fact said, Mr. Speaker, that one of the initiatives that a former Minister of Education wanted to do was implement several and a significant number of early childhood learning centers in hotspot areas. Mr. Speaker, he said that this is in fact a great initiative so that these parents of these children, when they are working several jobs and shifts so as to provide for their children, Mr. Speaker, they would be properly nurtured and cared for in these centers. As such, Mr. Speaker, my government and I, we intend to build these early childhood centers, especially in hotspot areas, so as to eradicate this problem. Mr. Speaker, also a new initiative that I'd like to bring forth as the Minister of Education, Minister of Health, is that children 5 years and above will be mandated to be brought to our health facilities by their parents on a yearly to year-and-a-half basis so as to be assessed physically, mentally, and psychologically, so as to assess what state of mind and spirit that they are in, Mr. Speaker, so that they may not fall privy to the attacks from gang leaders and other such persons. Mr. Speaker, this would work not only to prevent already affected students from engaging, Mr. Speaker, but also to prevent younger ones from in fact becoming afflicted by these problems. Mr. Speaker, I'd also like to...
Order 4410.
Member, I disagree. Member for St. Joseph, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it is sad to think that this is the state that our country has come to. It is also sad to think, Mr. Speaker, that the father of our...
Honorable member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of this House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for St. Joseph be extended by 3 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members of the House. Mr. Speaker, as I was saying, it is sad to think that our country has reached such a state. As a Calypsonian would have sung, bring back the old time days, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the old time days, not when schoolgirls would be attacking police officers in walk-through malls in Port of Spain. Not times when our students would be walking the streets of Trinidad and Tobago, cussing and getting on like hooligans. Mr. Speaker, old time days where our grandmothers would encourage us to go to church each and every Sunday and not to a fete. Mr. Speaker, it is sad to think that the father of our nation once said that the future of our nation is in fact in the school bags of our students. Mr. Speaker, it is also very and extremely sad to think that our future is filled with guns and knives that are in the school bags of our nation. That is why my government and I, we are wholeheartedly and truly intend to change this so as to secure the future of Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Community Development, Culture and the Arts.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to contribute to this very important and timely debate. Mr. Speaker, the biggest challenge to Trinidad and Tobago is not our depreciating economy, it is our worsening crime situation. Mr. Speaker, for a small country of just about 1.3 million people, our crime rate is untenable, Mr. Speaker. It is untenable. And I see no need for us to politicize crime. I believe that we were all elected, and as such, we should all be held responsible. Mr. Speaker, today the opposition has brought a motion that deals with the issue of youth crime. Notwithstanding the faulty assumptions made in this motion, we on the government agree with the opposition, and as such wholeheartedly are devoted to this motion. Mr. Speaker, we are well aware that no one wakes up at the age of 50 years old and suddenly decides to become a criminal. Criminal intentions are nurtured from a young age, and criminality is often manifested during the ages of youth. And it is so that my ministry, the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts, is engaged in the fight against youth involvement in violent crime. Mr. Speaker, if you would allow me to read the long list of initiatives that my ministry has put into place. Mr. Speaker, there is a community education program that now boasts 66 courses that are geared towards training and retooling young people so that they may be gainfully employed. Mr. Speaker, there is a Community Action for Revival and Empowerment, commonly called CARE. This initiative also boasts of critical community intervention strategies that treats with family life education and youth or adolescent development programs. Mr. Speaker, our community centers are no longer left empty, but have now become spaces for recreational activities, training for development, and, Mr. Speaker, enhancement of the leadership potential of the community leaders. Mr. Speaker, there is also the Community Development Fund. There is the Export Centers Company Limited, designed to make young people 21st century traders. Mr. Speaker, there is still the National Commission for Self-Help Limited that provides funding for youth projects, among other things. Mr. Speaker, as my ministry, as the name would suggest, we also utilize culture, the visual and performing arts, as means by which we can steer the young people onto a right path. Mr. Speaker, in the year 2014, the ministry established the National Philharmonic Orchestra. We also implemented the National Steel Orchestra and the National Theatre Arts Company, all in an effort to direct young people along a right path, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Culture Division of the Ministry tries to provide learning opportunities for artists, cultural workers, and young people to improve on their natural talents, Mr. Speaker, through exposure to training agencies in order to build their skill set, broaden their skill set, and also build entrepreneurial skills. Mr. Speaker, no one can deny the positive influence of youth in Carnival and the Carnival arts. So, Mr. Speaker, when the opposition comes to this House and moves a motion stating for measures to be put into place to reverse the involvement of youth in violent crime, they should at the very least, Mr. Speaker, look at the measures already put into place and come here armed with suggestions for improvements, Mr. Speaker. Finally, Mr. Speaker, 34.2% of our population is defined as youth. Mr. Speaker, it is then that we should then think that it means then that if we have to fix our crime problem, we have to deal with the youth involved in serious crime. Mr. Speaker, this Parliament cannot keep youth off the streets. They cannot keep the youth, cannot keep the young people out of gangs through the simple passing of a motion, through the passing of a law or a bill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we first have to re-engineer the communities, Mr. Speaker. Help the struggling families, Mr. Speaker. Recognize the rights of young people in this society, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, no law can fix crime. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Community Development, Culture and the Arts has been actively doing just that.
Honourable Member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honourable Members, the question is that the speaking time of the Minister for St. Anne's East be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Honourable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as you can see, we are not sitting on our laurels doing nothing. Mr. Speaker, this government has been actively involved in this society. Mr. Speaker, and as I close, I want to invite the opposition leader and the opposite members to join this government as we go walking and working in the streets of Beetham, Lavantil, Marabella, Chaguanas, even in the sister Isle of Lambo, even in the sister Isle of Tobago, in the village of Lambo, which recorded its second murder for the year. Mr. Speaker, it would be much more powerful to the youth of this nation than a motion if they see us working hand in hand together as a government, Mr. Speaker. It is not a them versus we thing. It's a all our we thing, Mr. Speaker. It's a all our we thing. Mr. Speaker, we don't need another motion. Instead, I would like the opposition to show you all your motion, show you what you're doing. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Chaguanas East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to deviate from all the statistics and numbers for a moment and look at this from a more psychological approach. Whereas the human mind is a very sensitive thing, Mr. Speaker. It can be influenced by words, actions, or even certain situations that can change one's perspective on things. And I believe at such a tender age, the mentality of these young persons can be changed at any given moment, especially if given the right chance. Now, firstly, as an example, I'd like us to examine the way the police force is portrayed on social media. They are mainly looked at in a negative light and so forth, when in actuality they are here to protect and serve us. Now, we all may understand that, but do the youth understand that to the extent that we do? Whereas the mass media is a powerful agent in social control, Mr. Speaker. And it can lead to the increase in the level of deviance in the country. With the police being seen in such a negative light, this can lead the youth to take up their own means of protection, whereas they will acquire weapons or even join gangs to quote-unquote handle things themselves. Now, Minister of National Security, I'd like to know what it is you will do to address this situation. Please, I'd also like to bring to everyone's attention an article from The Guardian published on Sunday, July the 24th, 2016, titled Residents Adapting to Crime, where an assignment was conducted by Sergeant Thompson of the Shogunas police station. And it was found that in secondary schools, the youth weren't able to even read or write properly, but were willing and capable of selling marijuana, taxing other students. Some were even in possession of deadly weapons, Mr. Speaker. Also, another article posted a few years ago on May 27, 2013, when a 14-year-old boy was brutally stabbed at school. Now, I would like to know what it is you all do to address this situation. Yes, I have heard your call out with putting more security guards, but that is where it comes to a mindset. As do the students, do the youth respect the police, even if it is you were to put them out there? Don't you feel like it will just mean they're putting themselves in a cage? You're putting them in a cage and restricting them from doing more? Now,
Would the honourable member give way?
Okay. Yeah.
What I'd like to know, you want the youth to respect the authority and respect the police officers and the security guards, but you come back to say that they feel like they're in a cage when they're there. Shouldn't they be present to respect them in the first place?
Well, you did not let me finish. I do have a suggestion, however, where the police or security can be more interactive with the youth, whereas this can give them a sense of comfort. By giving them a sense of comfort, don't you think that will actually make them respect them?
May the member give way?
Yeah.
The police are interacting with the youth through their 118 police youth programs.
Yes, I do acknowledge that. But when it comes to community and school-wise, do the youth actually stretch out to reach to the police?
No.
And that is the case where I'm trying to put that they get more interactive with them. The police actually goes out to be...
Member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honourable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Shogunas East be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
The main purpose of this is so that youth may look up to the police and not frown upon them. Now, in conclusion, I once heard the saying that prevention is better than the cure, and I would like the government to take note of that Because if we can have more prevention methods of these youths committing the violent crimes, there won't be need for all these correctional facilities. And I do commend the Education Minister for the programs she had recommended to be implemented. And I would just like to bring up in my personal experience that, yes, there are statistics, but I have known young persons from fortunate homes that have went to a life of crime. And I have known young persons from not so fortunate homes but still had a successful life. I think it all comes back to the mind and what is being retained in it by external factors. Perspective is everything. Sometimes there is more to the story than statistics itself. If we shine a light on positives, then the youth can be encouraged to think positive. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Works and Transport.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, although I have ministerial duties, my first priority and my primary responsibility is the people of Laventille West. We heard here today from the members on the opposite side that we don't have much opportunities in place. What we heard here so far, and that's enough opportunities for the member for the Minister of Community Development. He called out a lot of opportunities, and that's enough. Laventille West has seen... No, sorry, I only have a little bit of time. I do apologize. My constituency, Mr. Speaker, Laventille West, has seen quite a number of interventions by the state, NGOs, and religious organizations. As you can see as well, quite a number of opportunities present itself here. Mr. Speaker, on that note, we cannot spoon feed anyone. The opportunities are there. The youth have to go and take the opportunities for their self-betterment. Mr. Speaker, if you permit me, just to give an example from a young man from Toko, Kishon Walcott. Kishon, in Toko, Mr. Speaker, there aren't any big set of stadiums. It's not a big savannah, nothing like that in Toko. And this is facts I'm talking here. Mr. Speaker, he had a desire to succeed, which is how he found himself in the Hasty Crawford Stadium, seeking to find a coach to train him in javelin. It's on the beach, Mr. Speaker, with a bamboo and pelted mango as well, is how Kishon became TNT's second gold medalist at the 2012 Olympic Games. Mr. Speaker, I would like to propose a program, but this program is not unique, and I say so because we already have the OJT program and the University Graduate Training Program, which is a collaborative effort with all the ministries at present. This apprenticeship program, Mr. Speaker, will be targeted at the young people now finishing the various universities, specifically those who are doing engineering and the young contractors. What this program will do, this program will allow us to work with a number of engineers and contractors who are skilled in their field, and this will help them to get jobs, to get experience and techniques. And in the future, they can be hired by the various ministries. Take in consideration my ministry, for example, the Ministry of Works and Transport. We have vacancies and we are looking for young people because young people are the future. Mr. Speaker, on the topic of ex-convicts, yes, we know that it is very hard for ex-convicts to get jobs, but this stain on their certificate of good character shows a tendency towards crime and the weakness of their character. Mr. Speaker, and I want to pause for a moment and let the young people of Trinidad and Tobago know that your past is always used when assessing you for your future. your maliciousness on Facebook, your nakedness on Facebook, your crimes on Facebook, your obscenities, Mr. Speaker. The old people on Facebook now too. Employers are now looking on Facebook to see your history, to see if I should hire you or not. Mr. Speaker,
on a point of order, standing order 4410, the member is reading.
Honorable Member, I disagree. Yes, you may continue.
Speaker, I think we should invest in a pair of spectacles for the opposition bench. Mr. Speaker, the weaknesses that we as young people show when they fall prey to temptation only reflects on their character and their family core, the core on which they were brought up. So, Mr. Speaker, as I move on, if you have a criminal conviction, you can never become a parliamentarian, a lawyer, or even a judge. Mr. Speaker, not everybody who goes to jail is bad. Take for example, Nelson Mandela. He spent 27 years in jail, and he later became one of South Africa's presidents. Today, Butler is seen as a national hero in Trinidad and Tobago.
Honorable Member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes to continue my presentation.
Honorable Members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Laventille West be extended by 3 minutes. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members, as well. Mr. Speaker, we heard a lot of, good statistics here today, right? But I would like to give my share of the statistics as well. In the last quarter of 2015, the employment rate went from 3.50% to 3.80%. Yes, this shows a little increase, but I want to point out to the House today that a former planning minister in her budget presentation stated that a number of CSO public servants were suspended for tampering with statistics. So as I give these statistics here, I just want to let the House know that these statistics may or may not be true. And these statistics, Mr. Speaker, that
Mr. Speaker, I rise on a point of order, standing order 48-1.
Honorable Member, please tie your contribution to the motion being discussed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Yes, we know that the motion is on youth crime and the opportunities, but these statistics, Mr. Speaker, are used for the well-being of the people on Trinidad and Tobago. That is where I was tying it in. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to call on all CSO public servants, please be professional and work with the best interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. As a former president once said, the professional class largely failed the society. It is up to us today to rectify this and to go forward in a better light. In closing, Mr. Speaker, I believe that as young people in society, we have to do the right thing. And in the words of the Black Stallion, do what you have to do for your country, as long as it's good.
Member for Komoto Manzanilla.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, before I start, I'd like to turn my attention to the member for Lupino Bonnie West. He claimed that they are putting in foster homes, but what he does not know, or what he might know, I want to ignore, is they are foster homes. Those people do have police certificates stating that, yes, they are equipped to run this. So what you just said, you are just irrelevant. Mr. Speaker, the government, in response to this motion, has sought to list several things which they claim they are doing to serve youth involvement in serious crime. But despite what they seek to bring to the table, the evidence is clearly showing that what they are doing is not fulfilling any single thing at all. It is not working. There's a common definition for insanity which states,
Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. Perhaps the brother was right when he compared this House of Parliament to a madhouse. Perhaps he was right when he sang, "This is not a fetting here, this is madness." Because, Mr. Speaker, nothing else can explain why this government is bent on doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results from our young people. Mr. Speaker, no. Honourable Member, I'm absolutely sorry. You caught me off guard. I'm absolutely sorry.
Please maintain silence. Member for Komoto Manzanilla, you may proceed.
Once again, Honourable Member, I'm truly sorry. Mr. Speaker, here's some statistical data that cannot be denied. This data comes from the Children Authority of Trinidad and Tobago. I did not make it up. I did not pull these numbers. This is not fiction. This is a fact. From 2013 to 2016, the Children Authority is saying that serious crimes committed by children between the ages of 11 to 17, we have not yet reached 24, as follows. Murders 18, wounding 8, sexual offenses 117, kidnappings 10, breaking offenses 106, robberies 252, general larceny 79, larceny vehicles 4, and narcotic offenses 130. Therefore, the total number of serious crimes committed in this country by young people between the ages of 11 to 17, between the years of 2013 to 2016, is 713, Mr. Speaker. A whole 713. Mr. Speaker, I'm definitely afraid to look at the numbers between 17 to 24, because, I'm generally afraid. So what we are seeing here is what we as a country and what this government is doing is just failing our young people on every turn. Because, Mr. Speaker, if young people between 11 to 17 could commit 713 serious crimes, what will they do when they are 29? Also, Mr. Speaker, touching on what my honourable member said, the government is also failing us in the correctional facilities, for example, YTC. In this facility, they take the children that are doing petty crimes and put them with ones that did serious crimes, and with social interaction day in and day out. These younger children end up worse than how they went in. Some of the members want to ask, where is my proof? So permit me to read this. This is an article published on the Trinidad and Tobago newspaper by, I don't know why I'm shaking, by Ramesha Bal on Saturday, June 18, 2011. She states, at YTC, these youth are placed amongst the criminal offenders. What we saw was the stronger ones influencing the weaker ones. If not addressed, it can be developed into serious criminal behavior. So, Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is not lie. Social interaction day in and day out, they turn them into monsters. So they go in one way and they come out worse. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, I'm going to touch on why ex-convicts have a heart, why ex-convicts go back into a life of crime. The honourable member for Laventille West raised it and ducked on the question, Mr. Speaker. He did not even approve it. He went on some rant and rave, but here is my proof. Mr. Speaker, when these people are released from jail, the track record showing that they were criminals are scarred on them, and employers will not want to hire them, so what will they do? They will go back to what they know, which is crime. They will go back to stealing, murders, and so on, just to make ends meet. So, Mr. Speaker, and the Minister of Community Development said we are not presenting solutions. So here is my solution. We could put in an evaluation form or something that will show that yes, this person was.
Member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue speaking for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honourable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Komoto Manzanilla be extended by 3 minutes. All those in favour say aye. Aye. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. No. I think the ayes have it. Kevian. Kevian. Division.
They was gonna try to
Mr. George.
Aye.
Miss McGregor.
Aye.
Mr. Campbell.
Aye.
Miss Ali.
Aye.
Mr. Cupid.
No.
Mr. Joseph.
Aye.
Mr. Rollock.
Abstain.
Miss Roberts.
Abstain.
Mr. Prasad.
Aye.
Miss Wall.
Aye.
Mr. Sandy.
No.
Miss Campbell.
Aye.
Mr. Douglas.
Aye.
Miss Hall.
Aye.
Mr. George.
Aye.
Miss Kinsale.
Aye.
Miss Lord.
Aye.
Miss Suknanan. Miss Williams.
Aye.
Miss Bailey.
Aye.
Miss Richards.
Aye.
Miss Pear.
Aye.
Miss Ali.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Mr. Gopal.
Aye.
Mr. O'Keefe.
Aye.
Miss Nelson.
Aye.
Mr. Wilson.
Aye.
Miss Paul.
Aye.
Mr. Harvey.
Aye.
Mr. Mitchell.
Aye.
Miss Abdu.
Aye.
Miss Livingston.
Aye.
Mr. Espinoza.
Aye.
Mr. Mohammed.
Aye.
Miss Harewood.
Aye.
Miss Dan.
Aye.
Miss Hackett.
Aye.
Mr. Ali.
Aye.
Mr. Dishay.
Aye.
Miss Allen.
Aye.
Mr. Speaker, the results for the division is as follows. 36 for, 2 against, and 2 absent.
Honorable members, the result of the division is 36 members voted for, 2 voted against, and 2 members abstained. Member for Komoto Manzanilla, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, honorable members. Mr. Speaker, before I start back, we can see this member went down to childish play to try to cut me off because he knows I'm talking the truth. And as well for that, he made his whole government look bad because it looked like if the government ignoring the youth. Back to my point. As I was saying, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to ask for my protection. He's clearly trained words at me. As I was saying, these ex-convicts, when they are out of jail, they will have a hard time getting back into the working force because their track record. So my solution is put something in place where you will show the employer that yes, he was this and he was that, but no, he's like this, so he can have a clean slate to go back into the working environment. Mr. Speaker, in closing, we the opposition are not denying that the government does not have incentives in place, but what we are saying is they are not working because clearly we are seeing from what I just showed, everything is failing the youth. So Mr. Speaker, I hope the government buck up. I hope they buck up and pull their act together so we can have a better and sweeter Trinidad and Tobago. I thank you.
Minister of Labour and Small and Micro Enterprise Development.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as Minister of Labour and Small Micro Enterprises, as stated variously this morning, from both the government and the opposition side, I have a lot of work to do in terms of this sector. But before I begin to make my two short but very important contributions, I would really like to address some of the absurdities I heard this morning's proceedings. Mr. Speaker, I would like to remind the member for Komoto Manzanilla that his flight from Tobago landed almost 2 hours ago, and therefore it is enough time for him to pull his head out of the clouds and back into Parliament. Mr. Speaker, my member from Family and Community Development said that there are foster homes in place and there are security there, and therefore he will up the standards and improve on what is there already. He did not say that he will re-implement them, as the member for Komoto Manzanilla said. But ignoring him, returning to Shogunas East, on more than one occasion he contradicted himself, and he seems to deviate from answering the questions by asking another. And without his statistics, he asked us to shine light on the situation. But I would like to shine light as well by stating he has no sources, he has no data, and he has no proof of anything he has said. On to my contribution, Mr. Speaker. Income is a very important factor in dealing with crime in Trinidad and Tobago. This is exactly why most of our youth are involved in crime in the first place. And in response to that, my ministry, my first objective is to make improvements and amendments to the current retrenchment and retrenchment register. At present, this register allows all retrenched workers to sign up, whether online or at our office, in order for these workers to have a source of income. But what I am proposing, and what I've already in fact started to initiate from since last month, Mr. Speaker, is that this register takes into consideration the parents of the youth at this volatile stage in their life. Because it is a risk factor, Mr. Speaker, when they come from low-income houses and they are cut off from any income at their parents, are cut off from any income at all, and have to struggle to do things like go to school. Eventually, these youth end up trying to drop out of school and then are at risk of joining gangs and being victims to those already embedded within a crime circle. Mr. Speaker, with the new register, I'm taking into place the parents and allowing them to have preference in this register, and so that they will be able to not only find jobs for them that already existing in the system with their credentials, but to also provide and finance training, which I have already started to collaborate with the Minister of Finance about. And therefore, they will be able to be retrained and go into new areas which are already lacking, Mr. Speaker. Therefore, this addresses the problem of the low-income houses. And I hope that is enough to satisfy this opposition who demands so highly of me. Additionally, the member for Naparima asked about small micro enterprises and allowing it to be more flourishing within small communities, and I actually do have steps in place to make it sure it is more accessible. It is not that there aren't any entrepreneurial drives and centers right now, but before I made my amendments, which I've already begun, it was more of a thing for people to come to rather than it was going out to them. But under my direct administration, it's now taking a proactive approach into these at-risk communities so that they have a future to build on and not destroy the rest of their lives by involving themselves in crime, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Professor, if you'll allow me to.
Your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue for an additional 3 minutes.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West be extended by 3 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, if you would allow me to read the initiatives that this new bill will approach. Under my direct administration, we seek to promote increase, if not full localization of our carnival and the mass making industry, Mr. Speaker. I plan to work more in depth with the member for St. Anne's East in encouraging the sector. Specialized branding of many avenues for cultural tourism present in the society, Mr. Speaker, to take advantage of the multicultural aspect of our society and make that a profitable thing so that the youths have a sense of employment other than what we train them in the school system already. And we also seek to continue into diving into the communication technologies initiative so that they have more, what's the word, futuristic approaches. Mr. Speaker, under this government, we have, it was there already, but we continue to administrate and fund the youth business of Trinidad and Tobago, YBTT that is, and the NEDCO, and continue to push and finance them so that they have more entrepreneurial drives for the at-risk youth, so that they have a source of income in new businesses rather than crime. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minister of Trade and Industry.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, youth crime is a multifaceted issue with underlying contributing factors that go far beneath the surface. For this reason, it is an issue that needs to be handled with particular care. And in order to see a decline in youth participation in violent crime, we need to first neutralize the effects of these contributors. And also, what I think all of us in here need to understand is that quick and rash decisions do not equate quick results. Mr. Speaker, one such contributing factor is poverty. So much so that University of the West Indies study conducted in 2008 identified Trinidad and Tobago as suffering from a poverty complex. That is to say, Mr. Speaker, that among many families in our nation, there is a perceived want for material items and a lack of them, lending itself to parental neglect, emotional, physical, and sexual abuse of children, which in turn, Mr. Speaker, leads these children to experience feelings of anger, revenge, hopelessness, suicidal thoughts, and depression, all known contributors to youth participation in crime. In fact, Mr. Speaker, the Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce highlights the fact that 50% of youth who participate in criminal activity have suffered from past physical abuse and depression. Going along the same vein, Mr. Speaker, a survey conducted for the same UE study highlighted the fact that 75% of students, the survey was done in 13 out of 33 junior secondary schools in Trinidad and Tobago, 75% of students come from poor and single parent family backgrounds. So what is the relevance of this information? It is to show that there is no genetic predisposition for criminal activity. You are not born that way, contrary to what people may have you believe. That behavior is created, and whatever is created can be destroyed. Mr. Speaker, though it is infinitely complex, it is not insurmountable. Mr. Speaker, according to data provided by the World Bank, youth unemployment rates in Trinidad and Tobago rose from 9.1% in 2013 to 10.4% in 2014, a rise in tandem with the rise of youth participation in violent criminal activity. In fact, Mr. Speaker, in my constituency of Moruga alone in July of 2015, 3 murders within 2 weeks of each other were committed involving youth. One involving the killing of an 18-year-old while he was working at a vegetable stall, another involving the shooting of a 17-year-old while he was working on a car with his father, and in retribution for this murder, a 22-year-old and a 20-year-old killed another Moruga resident. Mr. Speaker, that is unacceptable. The majority of youth who participate in criminal activity do so because it provides them with a sense of safety, of security, of financial stability that they feel they cannot achieve elsewhere. So, Mr. Speaker, if the defining cause of youth crime is financial instability and a lack of security, then we aim as the Ministry of Trade and as the Minister of Trade and Industry, as well as the government as a whole, to provide the security to them through the expansion of programs such as the Youth Training and Employment Partnership Program, the Multi-Sector Skills Training Program, and the Civilian Conservation Corps, to name a few, to include areas of great youth interest such as sport, music, theatre, art, dance. Mr. Speaker, in this way, the youth will provide their labour, their innovation, their creativity, their skills, and in return receive compensation, training, and everything that they need to be well primed upon entrance into the adult labour market. Mr. Speaker, we believe that through emphasis on entrepreneurial values, we will see a marked decrease in the unemployment rates and poverty rates, and by extension, violent crimes. Mr. Speaker, entrepreneurship and employment is not just a matter of income, of economy. It is also a matter of diversification of the minds of youth, of nurturing their potential, their creativity, of teaching them the value of creating a job centered around their passion, of creating their own job to help them to earn an honest dollar. Furthermore, Mr. Speaker, we move that programs such as these be introduced at an early age, from as early as age 15, when youth are at the cusp of their development and most impressionable, so as to snuff out potential criminal intent before it comes to fruition. Mr. Speaker, finally, and I dare say most importantly, we believe that a yearly seminar should be held for education of industry leaders and other participants of industries to educate them on the proper reception of youth into industries, as well as changing their mindset on the concept as a whole. Youth should be viewed as the valuable economic and social assets that they are, capable of driving and defining industries versus how we see them now, as fickle, uneducated, inexperienced sectors of the population that lack direction. According to the member for Tabakit, immature.
Honourable Member, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreements of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honourable Members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for Moruga Tableland be extended by 3 minutes. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. I think the ayes have it. Honourable Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I was saying, we need to change the way that we view youth. As the member for Tabakit said, immature. I think that this is a very harsh and hurtful word that has the ability to affect youth in a very negative way. That you think that we should group them together and say that they are all immature in such a derogatory way is in itself negative, ineffective, and unproductive. Mr. Speaker, youth as a whole, young adults, adolescents, will start to care about the well-being of our country, will take an interest in our economy, our industries, our trade, the safety of our people, when the leaders of our country take an interest in them. And it's important. And it is important, Mr. Speaker, that we take an interest in them because, according to information provided by the 58th Commonwealth Parliamentary Conference, our gross domestic product, our GDP, stands to grow at least 1% with a significant reduction in youth unemployment rates. Mr. Speaker, in closing, youth crime, youth participation in criminal activity is rampant in our country, and it is precipitated by poverty, which unfortunately plagues the lives of many of the youth in our society today. We, as a government, hope that through the emphasis on entrepreneurial values, on employment and apprenticeship programs such as YTAP, the MUST program, and the CCC program, as well as education of our leaders on the importance of youth to our society, to our future and economy, we will see a rapid reduction in youth crime. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Member for St. Augustine.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I stand resolute with my opposition and the government to put forward that indeed youth crime is indeed a very important topic that we need to take note of. So far we've heard from the Member of Parliament for Arima. She alluded to the fact that most religious schools were afforded the most scholarship in the last years. However, I would like to ask of the member for Arima, does having or providing scholarship equate to less crime? Because I can remember that in a school, even though the children they did excel, some of the delinquent few who decided to follow along the line of crime was still quite rampant in these elite schools, even though, yes, the scholarship rate was also very high. So therefore, we cannot equate the provision or the giving out of scholarships to less crime. Secondly, the Minister for Lopinot Bonaire started by highlighting that family is the core of the society and that we need to ensure that our families are trained and the parents need to be trained. However, he went on to say that we need to have more foster care system. If the family is the core, as you stated, then why then should we separate it by taking away the children and putting them in?
May you give me a member? Member, you may give me.
I'm sorry, I have a short period of time. You spoke. Thank you very much. Sorry. Yes, why then should we separate the family? What is the criteria by which we'll determine after these parents might have gone through the parenting that you rightfully decided or you asked for them to go through, if they're unable to efficiently be good parents, why then should you take away their children also? If you are then saying we should train them, then you should not take them away. You should have some system in place whereby you could determine whether or not these parents have accepted the training that you rightfully stated before you go on to taking away these children. Okay? Thirdly, the member for St. Joseph stated that we should implement mobile clinics. Why should we invest into mobile clinics when we have health centers in these communities already? These health centers are permanent structures which could be efficiently equipped to assist the community members in going to get the health care that they need so that they can be better and efficient members of society. Now, for my presentation, I would like to have an overarching theme to fight this very sad problem of youth crime. This is teach them, save them, build them. We want to teach our youth the right morals, the right values to grow. As such, we will save them from a world of crime, and as such, build them for the future so that Trinidad and Tobago could be bigger and brighter. One method of doing this would be to implement a community council meeting, whereby when persons or youths they take part in petty offenses, we will collect them, meet them with their parents, the police officers, the counselors, talk to them, and guide them have them to understand that this road of crime leads nowhere. Upon giving my assignment for St. Augustine, I went to the St. Joseph Police Station, since they're in charge of St. Augustine also. And I found out from an officer there that she recognized that most petty offenders oftentimes escalate into violent crime. So therefore, if we stop it at a petty stage, we could be able to prevent our youths from escalating into a life of violent crime. And this can be done through this initiative of the Community Council meeting. Secondly, I would like to put forward that we tighten our gun legislation. We should reevaluate the criteria for giving out of gun license, because if we pull back on giving out of guns, or we pull back on the availability of guns to the society, we could be able to help the youth to stay away from the youth of crime, because most times they use the guns to perform these horrendous crimes, such as shooting. How can you shoot someone without a gun? So if we pull away the instrument needed to do these violent crimes, then we'll be able to prevent the youth, or at least restrict them somewhat from going into this life of crime. I also like the police to carry out more raids so that we'll be able to find these guns, because we need to go into the community and look for them. They would not just bring out the guns and give it to you, but you could be able to go out into the community.
Member for St. Augustine, your time has expired.
Mr. Speaker, I seek the agreement of the House to continue to speak for 3 minutes in order to complete my contribution.
Honorable members, the question is that the speaking time of the member for St. Augustine be extended by 3 minutes. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those against say no. No. I think the ayes have it. Member, you may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Another method in which we could be able to pull back on the gun availability in the community is to have a free day. In this day, if someone is in possession of a gun, an illegal weapon, they could be able to bring it forward. So you have boxes. So by doing this, if they bring it forward through this free day, they will be able to not get the
May the member give way?
I'm sorry, we have a couple minutes more and I'm trying to wrap up real quickly. So if they bring it forward in this time, they will not be locked up, and as such, they will be able to want to bring out the guns, and when they bring it out, we'll be able to stop it and get them off the streets. Finally, I would like to address a matter that so far we have not heard anything about. So here we are looking at violent crime, Mr. Speaker. However, we're only looking at shootings, guns, robberies, but we're not looking at the other part that the MUT so clearly put forward, and that is of rape and sexual offenses. Mr. Speaker, I would like to bring to you, please allow me to read this statistic that I found so quite alarming. The Minister of Gender, Youth and Child Development, Mr. Clifton Dakota, stated in 2010, police received 215 reports of rape, 22 reports of incest, 138 reports of grievous sexual assault, and 278 reports of sex with minor females between ages 14 and 16. The number of perpetrators being charged is in fact quite minimal. As for 2013, only 116 persons were charged out of 266 reported cases of sexual offenses involving female victims. Mr. Speaker, I believe that this is a very important thing that we need to address. I am a female, I am a non-national, but I believe that this is something we need to address, because this will in fact influence each and every one of us gathered here today. The problem of sexual offenses not only affects the persons but the victims especially, and this will curve us into having a society of wounded persons, and we cannot go forward on a foundation set on wounded individuals. So I would like to propose that we have more active prosecution of offenders. We need to stamp out these offenders, and as such help the youths to grow and flourish, give them the right opportunities to grow and be efficient members of society. How can we do this? We can implement community workshops. These community workshops will help to teach the young people self-defense courses. They can learn some karate, some street fighting techniques if they're by chance.
Member for St. Augustine, your time has expired. Honorable members, it is now 12:02. This House will suspend for 1 hour lunch and will resume at 1:02. Stand.